Part 2 of the research series. I want to address some of the questions that have come up concerning research. You'll notice that I have pulled up on my screen the CCBC Library homepage. I want you guys to be accessing article databases, and specifically when you get to article databases, either ProQuest Central or Academic Search Premier. These are usually the best research portals in terms of humanities style classes. Always make sure that you're performing an advanced search. The advanced search is going to allow you to narrow your search terms to something specific that you are trying to locate. Now I'm going to use the example paper that I posted a moment ago as my research focus. So for this advanced search, remember in that paper I was writing about desperation and pandemics. So in line 1 I've written desperation, line 2 I've written pandemic. I'm going to hit search. I have over 3,000 results. What I want to make sure is that I am looking specifically at scholarly journals because that is what I have asked you to do for this assignment. In clicking that, I've narrowed it down to 248 results. The next thing that I will do is I will read through the titles of some of these pieces to see if any jump out at me as potential pieces to use for my argument. One of the things that I talked about before we left for the online learning part of the semester was that when you're performing research, unfortunately, they're very unlike Google searches. So you're not going to find exactly what you want within the first couple pages necessarily. So I've been scrolling through. I haven't really found much that would help me with my research. If this were my paper that I was turning in for my course, I would probably spend, at least an hour or two combing through the various pages on this CCBC Library homepage. I would probably, let me get down to the bottom here, I would probably make it to about page 5 before I decided to change my search terms. So let's pretend that I haven't found anything in terms of desperation and pandemic. Well, the next option that I have is to change my search terms a bit. So one of the other things that I was discussing in my paper was the plague. So let's go ahead and hit that, see what comes up for us, desperation and the plague. Over 1,000 results. And it's still searching scholarly journals. So there's a lot, all right? So I'm seeing all these different terms highlighted that are identical to what I have up in my search terms. But let's say here again, I'm not finding anything that I want for this paper. I'll go back. I'll try different search terms again. Well, it's not just any plague. Maybe it's the bubonic plague. Right? And maybe it's not just desperation, but why not let's take a look at psychology and research in psychology in the bubonic plague. Now we're getting somewhere. The Black Death transformed disease and culture in early Renaissance Europe. That looks particularly interesting and could be helpful. Psychological effects of the 1994 plague outbreak in Surat, India. Now we're cooking with gas. I'd click on that full text PDF because that's likely something that I would like to use. So now we find out that it is a dissertation. If you want to read through the dissertation, be my guest, but these are usually 300 pages long. So I would probably go back to my research and I would take a look at this journal article from the Journal of Social History. So that's actually a book review, so it doesn't look like something that I can use for my paper, unless I wanted to go and access that particular book, which at this point in the semester, we don't really have time for that. So I would continue looking through to find something that might be helpful. Telling a coherent story of health and disease, that might be helpful. So I would click on that PDF, take a look at that. Perfect. So then I would read through and see if it speaks at all about the psychological impact of pandemics on human beings. And I would attach it to the research that I've completed, or attach it to the argument that I'm making about T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men. Here's the key piece that I want you to take away from this short lecture. Notice that in all of this research that I've been completing, let's go all the way back up to my search terms, I haven't put T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men in my search at all. I've only been looking at psychology, bubonic plague, desperation, pandemics, because what I would end up doing, were I to find research on psychology and the plague, is I would show that what T.S. Eliot is talking about in The Hollow Men is the same type of psychological desperation that researchers have located in other pandemics. All right? So perhaps if I were to take the time to read through that PhD dissertation, maybe this person demonstrated that in a particular period of time in India, when plague broke out, that people were enduring quarantines like we are, feelings of listlessness and desperation, same thing that we're seeing in T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men. As a writer, I would then have to make the creative connection between what I'm seeing in this journal article or in this PhD dissertation and what I am seeing in the creative work that I'm arguing about. In fact, T.S. Eliot's poem has been interpreted to mean multiple different things, not necessarily anything having to do with a pandemic or a plague. So in fact, I'm creating a whole new interpretation of this poem that I am then supporting with evidence that I'm locating in journal articles having to do with what I see in the poem. If you have specific questions about what I've just outlined here, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via email or my Google Voice number. I have heard from some of you and talked to some of you through some of your research assignments or research ideas, but based on what I saw in the rough drafts, I have some concerns about how folks are doing with attaching their research to the things that they are seeing in particular pieces that we covered this semester. So if you'd like to schedule some time to chat with me via Zoom, please reach out to me and we can talk through how to make this paper as strong as possible. Thanks, guys.